Welcome to the Misfits Guide to the Bible.
Where the curious, the skeptical, and the strange find a home.
I'm Jonas Worthy.
And I'm Sam Smith, and together we will embark on a journey through the Bible's wild side.
For those who don't quite fit in. Hey everyone, it's Jonas here. Finally back. I'm flying solo today. Don't worry though, Sam will be back soon. But I thought I'd take this opportunity to share something a little personal and something that's kind of been bouncing around my head for a while. So today it's just going to be you and I. We're going to have fun today. The holiday season was crazy busy for both Sam and I. We both took a little bit of a short break to get through it. And I'm back. I'm here. Hope you missed me. Hopefully, Sam will be able to join us next week. If not, then I might try to have another guest host on. We'll just see. We'll just see what happens. But today, you're getting my solo thoughts on a passage. So let's dive in. Today, I want to talk about a strange wrestling match. Jacob wrestling with the angel, or a man, or God. We'll see. So this comes from Genesis 32, if anybody was curious about that. But like most stories in the Bible, this isn't just a story about some guy grappling with a divine being. It's about struggle. It's about identity. And perhaps we can even take this to be a deeper reflection on what it means to wrestle with the divine in our own life. Anyone having any flashbacks? I know I am. Let's get into it. So we're going to read from Genesis 32, and we're going to read 22 through 32. The same night he got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maids, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and likewise everything that he had. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he struck him on the hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day is breaking." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" He said, "Jacob." Then the man said, "You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with humans and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, yet my life is preserved." The sun rose upon him as he passed Penuel, limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the Israelites do not eat the thigh muscle that is on the hip socket, because he struck Jacob on the hip socket at the thigh muscle. So that's the story here. And there are a lot of different things that we could talk about in this story, but something that I just want to kind of get out in the open before we discuss anything else. I'm not a scholar. You may know that, you may not. I have some training. I went to seminary. I graduated from seminary. I've read some academic articles. I've written papers. I've done things like that. Nothing that's been published. So I also want to put that out there. I love digging into the academic side of scripture. That is one of my favorite things that I did while I was at seminary. But I'm not as well versed as someone who has a PhD, who's gone through a great amount of studying over a specific topic. My training was more on the pastoral sense. How to make sense of the text for people today. And what we can see within the text and how that might apply to us. So maybe you can think of me as your agnostic pastor. So with that out of the way, let's recap a little bit of it. So Jacob's life was complicated. So he's on the way to reunite with his brother Esau. And yes, this is the Esau that he stole the birthright from. Jacob's nervous. And, you can understandably recognize why Jacob might be nervous about this. So Jacob begins to send these gifts out in front of him to try to appease Esau, just in case Esau's still pissed at him, which he might be. And then one night, Jacob finds himself alone. And out of nowhere, this man starts wrestling with him. And they fight all night. And then at some point, this guy just reaches over, touches Jacob's hip, and dislocates it. But Jacob still doesn't let go. It's like, I won't let you go unless you bless me. And then the guy does bless him. It's very strange. He gives Jacob a new name, Israel, which we see means struggles, wrestles, strives with God. And then, just as mysteriously as it began, it's over. This guy, this man, just leaves. And Jacob is left limping. And he's changed. So, obviously, in part, this story is an etiology. So, if we're looking into the literary context of this, what purpose is this story serving? It was an etiology, which most of the book of Genesis is, and is trying to convey an explanation for why things are the way that they are. Jacob is connected here with the nation of Israel, which then also connects Israel to the Abrahamic covenant. And it's an important story for the Hebrew people. So why do we read these stories today? I think it's why we read any story, so that we can see ourselves in it and to learn more about what it means to be human from another's perspective. And here's the thing. Does this story just have to be about Jacob? Does it just have to be some etiology that describes why the people of Israel got their name, or why they associate themselves with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or Yahweh, or any of these other things? And yes, I know it's appropriate to situate within a context and to do the proper historical and literary analysis of the texts, and not just yanking it out of its context. But that's why I tell you, at my core, I'm still a pastor. I'm a storyteller. And I want you to be able to find the story situated, your story situated within these pages. I want you to learn more about yourself. I want you to learn more about your own humanity whenever you encounter this text, or really any other. Because we as human beings can find ourselves within this story and within any story. Who hasn't felt like you were wrestling with something bigger than yourself? Faith, whether it's this idea to walk away from a faith that you held deeply and dearly for many years, whether it's this idea to come back to a faith and try to find a more beautiful version of that forward, and what the friends that you've made on the other side of that faith might think about that, or whether you're just simply trying to get through another day. We have all found ourselves wrestling with something. We're faced with something that feels overwhelming. The outcome's unknown. We doubt ourselves, whether it's our faith in God, whether it's our faith in ourselves, or whether it's our faith in the people that we find around us. That begins to waver. And then in the midst of that, we find that something is ambushing us on top of everything else. That's where Jacob finds himself. And Jacob wins this fight by sheer tenacity. We find that if Jacob is truly wrestling the divine here, being a mere mortal is not going to bode well for him. Jacob wins this by refusing to give up, even though he is in immense pain after his hip is dislocated. And isn't that the misfit experience? Isn't that what being a misfit is all about? Holding on to things that matter, even when everyone else is telling us to let them go. Holding on to faith when others are telling you that you need to let go, or that this faith doesn't belong to you anymore. Or on the other side of faith, holding on to your values whenever others are telling you you have no good reason to believe or to hold those values. And then one of the strangest parts of this, the blessing. Jacob doesn't walk away unscathed. He walks away with a limp. But he walks away with a new name, an identity, someone who has wrestled and prevailed against both God and man. My deconstruction and deconversion, they left some scars. I'm not going to deny it. And many of the people in my life don't understand. They don't understand how I can simultaneously be deeply wounded by the loss of my faith and also feel so free on the other side of it. Coming out on the other side with no regrets despite the pain. I'm sure many of you feel this way. I'm sure many of you have faced a similar painful process going through a faith journey or lack thereof. You might have been cast out by family members, friends, or just society in general, and taking on that moniker of a misfit. I've had my own wrestling matches in life with God, with myself. The idea of what life is supposed to look like, it's not always pretty. It's messy, it's painful, and at times you're left with more questions than answers. And through all of that, what I've learned is that that's the point. The point is to struggle, to wrestle, to not always know what to do, to have the questions, to not have the answers, to be a misfit. And perhaps that's where the blessing is. And I don't mean this in some kind of spiritual, divine blessing kind of way, just in the life-giving, restorative kind of way. And something that brings you peace. Not the answers, but in struggling, in the act of holding on, in stubborn refusal of letting go of the hope that there is something meaningful on the other side of my deconstruction, deconversion, faith journey, lack thereof. So what are you wrestling with? You wrestling with loss of faith? You wrestling with going back to some semblance of faith? You wrestling with the fact that you live in a religious society and have never had any kind of faith journey? Or are you just questioning, where do I go next in my life? Here's my challenge for you. Don't let go. Hold on, even when it hurts. And if you find yourself in need of someone to talk to, or just need somebody to listen, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. This podcast is something that I don't want to become us just talking at you. We've called this the Misfits Guide to the Bible because we want those who feel like they're misfits to know that they have a place, that you have a community and a space that is welcoming you. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for allowing me to share a little bit with you. Next week, I'm hoping that Sam will be back and we'll be diving into another bizarre but obviously misfit-worthy story. And if not, then I'll try to bring in a guest host and we'll see where we go from there. Either way, you're not going to want to miss it. So until then, keep wrestling, keep questioning, and remember, you belong here and you don't have to give up your identity to do that. See you next time. Peace.
If you liked this episode, please consider liking and subscribing if you are on YouTube, or rate and follow the podcast.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you have any questions or would like to suggest a story, please feel free to reach out to us on X or Blue Sky. Until next time, remember that belief isn't the price you pay for being worthy.
And you're not alone in feeling like a misfit.